I can't think anyone outside of me will give me the counsel and the advice and the leadership and the direction that I can take without checking in with myself first and saying, does this resonate? Hey y'all, it's Chimdi. So I've had a few different people in my comment section, in my Instagram DMs, in conversation, reflect how great and refreshing and cool it is that I love God and I talk about loving God all the time in all of my videos. Upon reflection, when I watch other YouTubers, it isn't so common to see them make references to God, to make references to their faith and their spirituality, unless they are explicitly talking about that. I asked my Instagram folks, I was like, thinking about making this video, would love any sort of reflections y'all have. And a couple reflections came in. One was around someone else who was a woman of faith, and she said, I don't want to feel as if I'm pushing my faith on other people. What I think is really beautiful about that is there's this idea of wanting to allow people to be who they are in their own journey, which is dope. And that's the whole thing, in my opinion, is like letting people live, letting people figure things out for themselves, trusting that they are the expert on their own life, and we can just let them do what they want to do. But when I hear by even mentioning a belief system, by even mentioning what I feel, that is pushing it on people, makes me think about the greater trauma that's happened in our culture religiously, and how much religious trauma people have and either can talk about or don't talk about, and instead prefer to just not even engage with matters of faith and spirituality because it brings up so much trauma for them. Thomas Hupel, we love it, has a metaphor that really resonated with me about the idea of being triggered, because we use that word a lot and it's very much in our culture and we kind of say it kind of casually, but he described the feeling of being triggered as, imagine you are walking in a dark room and then you accidentally touch an electric fence. So you didn't even know the fence was there. You were literally wandering in the dark, and out of nowhere an incredible shock runs through your system. Can you imagine how upsetting, terrifying, scary, angry, like all the things that would come up in you when you're minding your business and suddenly you're just being shocked literally to your core? And that really helped me understand that there are so many things people have, so much trauma people have, they're holding it in their bodies. They don't even know it's there because it's been buried for so long. And a thing you say, a word you say, a phrase might be the equivalent of shocking their entire system. And I really believe this is why we heal. I wanted to heal because I didn't want to be the person shocking others. I wanted to learn how to better navigate the world so that I could move through and truly never hurt anyone, never offend anyone, never make anyone feel bad. It was an extension of my own trauma and my own desire to people please, because I believed my safety would come from never hurting anybody else. It's like, well, if I didn't hurt you, if I didn't do anything wrong to you, then you won't hurt me and I'll be okay. A big part of my healing journey has been realizing that bad things didn't happen to me because I did something bad or because I am a bad person. It's not a reflection of who I am if I find myself in situations where I'm being bullied, if I find myself in situations where I'm being neglected and I'm not being loved. That's not because I am inherently unworthy and it's something I have to do to fix it. It is truly a reflection of the other person and their journey. As I speak, I hope it's becoming clear to you, as it became clear to me, how impossible it would be to navigate through my entire life and never hurt anyone's feelings, because I don't know what everyone has gone through, even though with the healing stuff and the work I'm doing, you do kind of tap into nervous systems and it is very cool. But ultimately, I will never be able to be so shiny and smooth and no edges and no ridges such that my presence doesn't in some way rub against someone else in a way that they find uncomfortable. And in reality, what I was trying to do in healing in that way and approaching my life in that way was shine less bright, dim my light, be less of my full self, be less in my full expression, because I wanted other people to be comfortable. That's something a lot of us have to go through. I know I'm not alone in thinking that's the way I can navigate and be successful in this world. But I realized that for faith especially, because there is so much religious trauma, it can feel like in this extra sort of yeah, this is actually what I believe. And it is an invitation to people to say, oh, well, what do I believe? And if they believe something else because of something bad that happened to them, that might be very difficult for them to deal with. And they may take that difficulty out on you because they don't have the tools and the capacity to deal with it themselves. And that's been part of my journey on YouTube, is because I do get comments from people who don't like that I've mentioned God as much as I have in a video. And I realize it's because it's them. If there's something going on with them. And so I don't get mad, I don't get irritated. I just send them grace and I just send them love, because I know for them to have a reaction and not just like, it takes energy to leave a comment, you know? That means that you've been triggered and you're reacting to something. If your comment is not rooted in love, that means it's like, oh, trigger, let me just get it out, right? And so that means there's something that's there for that person. In this moment, they don't have the space or the capacity to really sit with it. And so they're trying to just get the energy out and not feel it. You know, I have the capacity where I can see it for what it is and just let it roll off my shoulder. The other thing that I got in the Instagram DMs was, you know, the person was affirming, it's like, well, that's just who you are. Like, you're someone who loves God. This is just how you are showing up. But if that's not really what you believe, and he kind of just left it at that. And it made me think about how there are people who say certain things. We know, come on. They say certain things and their life and their embodiment shows that it hasn't actually maybe penetrated all the way into their heart. And we feel that. We feel that discrepancy. We feel that falseness in what they're saying and what is actually true. And we know. We may not even know them like that, but we know because we can feel it. This doesn't ring true. And that itself being its own emotional journey, because if we've had to deal with people who have said one thing to us, really believing another, that can be triggering for us. Like, you know, why are you saying these things to me? I know that's not true, you know, all this kind of stuff. I feel pretty grateful because I usually am pretty good at discerning when people are just saying something and they're just talking versus when they live it. And so it's not even radiating off in their words, it's radiating off in their energy, and I tap into that and I feel it. But I have had that experience of like, especially with like spiritual people on YouTube, because I think it's very easy on social media to kind of copy and paste certain spiritual ideas and create this idea that you're this spiritual person. And so I have found myself following spiritual people and then after a while being like, this isn't really lining up. The way you're showing up in this moment, fundamentally, the things you've been talking about, you couldn't believe them to be showing up like this in this moment. And that's an invitation to me to be more discerning and to realize that no one outside of me can be my leader. I can get wisdom, I can get advice, I can get counsel. Thomas People for me is a spiritual teacher. So I'm like, oh, I'm learning a lot from what this person is teaching me. Love it, big fan. But ultimately, I can't think anyone outside of me will give me the counsel and the advice and the leadership and the direction that I can take without checking in with myself first and saying, does this resonate? That's why I always bring that up in my videos. I'm always like, I hope this resonates with you. I don't want you to believe everything I'm saying and just take it at my word, because I'm still figuring things out. And like I said in another video, I made a video yesterday and my opinion about it changed today because of something I read last night. So there's a constant evolution, and I love this channel because you get to see the stuff that I believed 3 years ago and then the stuff I believe now. You're like, oh, like the shift, the evolution, it's happening constantly. It's up for you to discern which of these things, you know, it resonates with you because it feels true and it feels right. And which of these things you're like, that is Chimdi's trauma. And she don't know it yet, but she gonna figure it out in about 6 months and then be on here making a video about it. I feel like that's how it is with, I made this video about New York and how I realized that how I feel about New York might be rooted in trauma, which was kind of mind-blowing for me. Literally had not occurred to me until, well, a friend kind of held a mirror up to me and I was like, oh, every other video and every other time where I say New York is the best city in the world, you couldn't have told me that I didn't believe it and that it wasn't true, because in my mind that was completely true. And it was true because of the shadow. It was true because there wasn't enough light in my life. We can never think, especially somebody on the internet, not even somebody we know in real life, somebody on the internet, we can never think that they know better than us, because no one but you is an expert in your own life. All anyone can say is, this has been my experience. This is what I've seen. And there is so much that I have not seen, and I'm grateful for that. There's so many things God has been like, baby girl, you're not necessarily gonna be able to handle this one. I'm gonna keep that from you. And I'm like, thank you. Thank you for knowing me, you know? And there's so much that I want to see, that I'm actively living a life so that I can see and I can expand. And as a result, I will always be shifting and I will always be changing. I think if we look to spiritual people on YouTube thinking that they're gonna guide us, we have to be careful that we are also not outsourcing our own life to someone else and their own decision making. And I think if the reason why God feels uncomfortable for that reason is because we know that there is a level of not wanting to do our own work and our own relationship building with God, then that can be holding a mirror up to us. The other thing I want to reflect on, I love talking about God, I feel like I could do this all day. The other thing I wanted to reflect on is this idea of being cool, you know? And I think growing up, especially in like pop culture and media, it wasn't cool to love God. It was cool to be an atheist. It was cool to like, I don't care. Earth is a dead rock and we're floating through space and none of this matters. And for some, like, it doesn't make any sense how that could be the cool position. But yeah, that was like the cool thing to believe. And so in order to fit in, if that was important to you, you would maybe lean more into that way of being. I think part of why some folks are responding to me is because I am incredibly cool and also love God. And they're like, wait, the two can coexist. And I think what's really, I hope what people are really resonating with is that I'm just living into my full expression. And so that means that all the things that I care and love about, some of them, which I will say, they're different. I believe in some different things. The video that's going out today is all about aliens. And I'm like, yeah, I believe in all those alien conspiracies, y'all, all of them. If they support my personal worldview that I am blessed and everything is gonna be okay, then yes, I believe it. If it's anything about like intergalactic wars, I'm like, no thanks. Cannot be bothered, don't care. But if it's something saying like, back in 2012, things shifted and now there's more light on the planet and the light has won. And I'm like, awesome, cool, love that for the people. So there's all these things that I believe too. And it's interesting because there is a part of me that even in just making that video was like, oh no, I have all these Christian people following me who some have very strict dogmas. Like I made a video about tarot. The way people were like, girl, the devil is in those tarot cards. And I was like, oh, I don't really believe in the devil. I was like, it's not really, I don't have a fear-based spiritual practice. My God is pure love and I am divinely protected. There's no entity attacking me. But if that works for you, like do you, right? Because I also know that people believe things and it helps them get through the day, and I don't want to attack anything that helps somebody get through the day. But yeah, I've sensed that feeling of like, oh, I've talked about God in a particular way. So if people who have different viewpoints about God come on my channel and now I'm talking about channeling Bashar and Abraham Hicks and all these sort of things. What if I alienate my viewership and they stop watching because they think like, oh, I've lost my mind, all these kinds of things. So that is something that also comes up for me. But I think ultimately because I know the power and the importance of being in my full expression and the inspiration that it gives others, I think that's the only reason we're here is to be in our full expression. I know that it's worth saying and being and doing things that are true for me, even if it feels a little scary, because I'm worried about how it's gonna rub off on someone else. And the final thing I want to share is this reflection on the John the Baptist state. This is something that Neville Goddard talks about. It's this idea that in the Bible, all the different figures are actually states of consciousness. And the John the Baptist state is one that says there is a right way to be, there's a right way to do things, there's certain things you have to eat, certain things you can't eat, certain things you have to wear, certain things you can't wear, certain people you have to hang out with, certain people you can't hang out with. There's this way of being and doing in life, and that is how you buy your way into heaven. Heaven, God's love, that peace, it's not your natural birthright. It's something you have to earn. And Neville Goddard suggests that we all have to go through that phase at some point. And I found that as someone who loves God and talks about loving God all the time on my channel, when I bring up things that I fear may contradict that specific way of being, the John the Baptist way of being, it makes me very uncomfortable. So I had someone DM me about the video I made about not smoking weed anymore and how resonant it was. I mentioned how it was actually kind of scary for me to make that video because I was worried about people knowing about this side of me and I judged that part of me. So like being open to judgment, all these different things. And they were so surprised. They were like, oh, I would not have guessed, because of the way I was showing up in that video. They were like, I would not have guessed that was something that you felt uncomfortable talking about. Part of why I felt really uncomfortable talking about it is because I talk so much about God. There are certain folks who have very strong opinions when it comes to how you should be, how you should act if you say you love and follow God. And smoking would be one of those things people are like, whoa, that's unacceptable kind of thing. And I did have some folks, I remember it was someone who like left a comment in the video being like, ew, you smoke weed? And it was that exact kind of judgment that I was scared of. The other people in the comments were quick to be like, actually, they came at that person for me. I ended up deleting the whole thing. It's not necessary. We're not scrapping in my comment section, because we're humans and we're constantly learning and growing and making mistakes and then fixing them and going off course and getting back on course. It can be tough to give ourselves that grace, truly the grace of God, and do it in a public way. And so it's easier to just pretend like we're these perfect people who have it all figured out and all our mistakes just stay like skeletons in the closet and we never really talk about it and we never air any of it out. And I'm a big believer that it's actually the process of bringing light is what heals. For me, I'm trying to embody and show up in that way. But I've also experienced what it's like when it's like, well, people are gonna feel very, very strongly. And I've had people literally leave my life because of things I've said and things I believe. And part of me is like, shouldn't my character, the way I show up, speak for itself? But actually, when I reflect on it, there is always more for me to do when it comes to actually embodying what I believe is God's whole vibe. Infinite, endless, unlimited. What's the word that means no restrictions and no barriers? Unconditional love. There are times where I'm constantly in situations and I'm called to love, and sometimes I choose judging somebody. Sometimes I choose being angry at somebody. It's a constant invitation to be like, all right, next time, let's do it differently. Let's do it differently. Let's not beat ourselves up. That doesn't serve anybody. But next time, let's actually invite love into the room. Those are my reflections on showing up as someone who loves God on YouTube. I hope it resonates with you. That's all I can ask. That's all I want is resonance. Let me know in the comments if it does. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Patreon people, you remain the best. And if you want to ask me a private question or do some one-on-one coaching, you can schedule some time with me below in my Calendly. I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.